Hello viewers, this is Paladin of Odin, and this is some more Magic the Gathering Online. This is another episode of the Standard Commentary Series, and I know there was supposed to be a video on Sunday, but I screwed up. There wasn't one. I apologize, and I'll try to do better in the future. But as another YouTuber more wiser than I says, don't make excuses, make content. So I'm not going to make an excuse for why there wasn't a video. There is no excuse. I screwed up. So, today's video looks like Boros Aggro versus Gruul Aggro. Currently, Boros has an Unruly Mob, PNLR, just threw down a Glint Sleeve Artesian, made the Servo token. The other side has 2 Long Tusk Cubs. And I have to say, I don't see Unruly Mob hardly at all, but in a deck that looks like this, with all these little tokens that, are guaranteed that are going to die, and him just saying another creature, I mean, he could have said whenever another human creature you control dies, and then he would totally suck. But, whenever another creature you control dies, and, guaranteed these guys are going to die. Servos, Thopters, they are going to die. So, theoretically, this guy could be incredibly good. It's just a matter of whether your creatures die or not. And against Gruul Aggro, I mean, you're guaranteed to get a couple of creatures dying, but, most of the time, when they're going full on at you, and there's Harness Lightning. So it's a 2/2, so he'll net 1 energy, kill off the Unruly Mob to secure that tactic right here, right now. No more +1/+1 counters. Because, a 2/2, not exactly helpful. A 3/3, much more helpful. A 4/4, very helpful, and then so on and so forth. But the great thing about Gruul Aggro is things like Harness Lightning allow you to use your backup energy reserves in case something is too big for the base spell to deal with. But I am surprised right there that he didn't block either one of these guys. He just let him gain 4 energy. I don't really care about the 4 damage. He was at 20, 4 damage, not that big a deal. 4 energy, on the other hand, that is quite a big deal. But after combat damage, Tormenting Voice, discarding a land, Sandstone Bridge, +1/+1 and Vigilance. Well, Gruul has left himself wide open, so if Boros can capitalize, I mean, at the moment, 6 damage is quite a bit of damage. Another Unruly Mob. The only problem is that if he goes all out, he leaves himself wide open for the return shot, and the return shot is going to be a lot more damage. And it looks like it looks like he's contemplating, what should I attack with? No reason not to attack with PNLR here since she has Vigilance. And he's throwing the Servo token in there as well. So that'll be a total of 4 damage. And thanks to the Sandstone Bridge, he still has 3 blockers. Okay, Attune with Aether. Another land, 2 more energy. He's got a ton of energy at this point. The only problem is that Long Tusk Cub is kind of on the, low end of the power scale for these energy guys. Voltaic Brawler. A very powerful card. I'm sure he wished it had come along a lot sooner, because that early tempo of swinging with a 4/3 trample every turn can stack up very, very fast. So attacking in with both of the Cubs, no reason not to. He's got 11 energy in the bank. It doesn't matter how Boros blocks here. the cubs are not going to die, and whatever he blocks with will die. And since he had 11 energy in the bank, he's really not willing to just let him punch him in the face as hard as he feels like. He throws the glint sleeve artesian in front of one of the cubs. He responds by buffing the cub so that it'll survive. Now, oh, never mind. I was going to say, Boros could respond with something like a Harness Lightning of his own. Tack on an extra 3 damage, force him to either save it or let it die. And if he was going to save it, that would have cost him 6 more energy. And I don't know if he has anything else to do with his energy, so most likely he would have just buffed it. But he would have burned a lot of energy to do it. And the result would have been the same. The Artisan would have died. The only difference would have been that this cub would be a lot bigger now. And at this point, it really doesn't matter how big the Long Tusk cub is, because it doesn't have trample by itself. Now, there are plenty of combat tricks that Gruul Aggro has access to that can give it trample, but he's only got 3 cards in hand. If one of them is not a card that gives his creature trample, it does not matter how big Long Tusk cub becomes. Cruise a vehicle. That vehicle gains first strike. Oh, another Looming Spire. So 2/2 first strike, attacking in, spends his mana to make it a 3/2. And even if he had a combat trick to buff up his Voltaic Brawler so that he could block and kill the servo, it's only 3 damage and he's at 16. There was no reason to block there, even if he had the option. Because effectively, the servo token is still out of combat right now. It can't do anything to affect the next combat phase for Gruul Aggro. Unfortunately for Boros, it just looks like he has had a really bad run here. I mean, I like the addition of Unruly Mob just because, like I said, he has a lot of small creatures that are going to die, which your opponent is going to know as well, so they're most likely going to target the Unruly Mob over other things, so he kind of becomes a human target for you, and then if it doesn't die, it has the potential to be really big and scary, which can slow down a deck like Gruul Aggro. Lathnu Hellion. Well, this guy is not going to go anywhere anytime soon. Unfortunately, he doesn't have trample. That's fortunate for Boros, which means that he can chump block. The problem is that he's only got 3 blockers versus 4 attackers. His opponent has 13 energy to spend. 1 gives him +1/+1 and trample. So he has 6 activations on Long Tusk Cubs if he feels like it. And he concedes. And I don't blame him. I don't know exactly what his deck list is. It doesn't look like... I get the feeling that he's not running your high-tier Boros aggro deck list. Just from a few cards. It's just, Glint Sleeve Artesian isn't really all that good. I like Unruly Mob, but I'll admit it's not really that good. Gearshift Ace... there's an argument to be made for a 2-power first strike for 2 power or for 2 mana that gives vehicles first strike, but he never got a vehicle. Maybe he's trying a new thing. Maybe he's going for that exact thing of the Unruly Mob benefit, which isn't normal for Boros aggro. Normally, they focus a lot more on damage to the face, like Gruul aggro. But if you're going to focus on another way of doing things outside of just straight damage to the face, you need to have a control suite to deal with your opponent's creatures. And we didn't see anything from him. Not an Incendiary Flow, Harnessed Lightning. Oh, what is that creature? I'm trying to remember what he's called. The dwarf creature that exiles target creature for as long as it's in play. You know, it's sort of a otherworldly journey as a creature. I can't remember what it's called though. But it's a 3-drop. Ninth Bridge Patrol. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on him. So he's effectively the same thing as the Unruly Mob. So it looks like that's his whole purpose. Only, you know, with Ninth Bridge Patrol, you know, your creature doesn't have to die for him to get the counter. You could just blink him. In this battlefield, you may return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. I see. So, a little bit of a bounce mechanic here that we didn't see in in last game. Electrostatic Pummeler. Well, you know, he doesn't have a whole lot of energy yet, but that doesn't matter a whole lot. You know, all he really needs is one more energy and then enough buff spells to make the Pummeler big enough so that when you double and then double again, it's lethal. Aviary Mechanic. Okay, so bounce the other Aviary Mechanic, play the other Aviary Mechanic, bounce the other Aviary Mechanic, and that will turn the Ninth Bridge Patrol into a 3/3. I mean, that seems like a lot of work just to get 2 +1/+1 counters. Especially considering your opponent most likely is not going to attack this next turn. I mean, he could. Theoretically, he could. But most likely, not. I mean, if he had something, you know, if he had another Attune with the Aether, followed by, like, Larger Than Life and Built to Smash, most likely he's going to have enough damage to win. But, you know, that'd be a very specific scenario. He'd have to have all the cards that he needs in hand or, you know, draw a missing card off the top. Attacks in with the Ninth Bridge Patrol for 3 damage. Not that big a deal. He was at 19. But, you know, now would be a really good time to get rid of the Electrostatic Pummeler. And, obviously, Boros Aggro had no way to do it. Because now is the perfect time to kill off Electrostatic Pummeler before he gets ridiculous. But now Gruul is untapped. He's got 6 energy in the bank, so he can activate the Pummeler twice. Aviary Mechanics getting hit with Harnessed Lightning. And it dies, makes the Ninth Bridge Patrol a 4/4. And Larger Than Life. 5/5, doubled to 10, doubled to 20, and that's the game. Yeah. I don't think that this particular brand of Boros Aggro has what it takes to make it in Standard right now. I like the idea, though. You know, the little trickiness and then the strategy of knowing that your creatures are going to die to buff your other creatures. And, you know, I like that idea. It's just, it's not staunch enough and it's not fast enough, unfortunately. So, he went down to 0-2 right there. But, you know, I like your deck building. It was an interesting idea. So, unfortunately, he lost there. I've rambled on for way too long. Sorry about Sunday. Try not to happen again. Thank you for watching. This was Boros Aggro versus Gruul Aggro. And if you liked what you saw, hit that like and subscribe button for me, and I will see you in the next video.